Good afternoon and welcome to Bourbon Bikes and Business with Blaise and Hank. How you doing today, Hank?
Great. How are you doing?
Awesome. It's a little rainy out there, but
it is a little rainy. I'm glad I didn't have a ride planned for today.
Yeah, I would have loved to get out today, but I got too many things going on. So, anyway.
Good day for a day off.
Yeah. So today's topic, we've got something for beginners, intermediate, and maybe even advanced tips on gravel cycling tips. I thought might be a fun topic just to cover, since that's my bailiwick. I'm spending most of my time on gravel. I know you do a lot too. So we thought we'd give our viewers and listeners a couple tips. So it should be good, sweet, to the point, and hopefully we'll help you with a couple tips you haven't heard before.
I really only have one tip. Don't let Blaise do the route planning for you.
Oh, you're good with
that's
the
my
talk.
tip. Yeah.
Okay, if that's the case, don't let Hank do the bike packing route planning.
Well, okay, maybe.
Okay, we're even.
That wasn't my fault. That came from a route online. I take no responsibility for that.
Yeah, right. Okay. Anyway, so what do you have on tap today? What are you sipping?
Today, I don't think I've had this on the show before.
No.
Calumet 16. So I have the
good stuff.
815 blend. I have the 14, the 15, and the 16, and they are all excellent.
Wow, cool. I don't think I've had that. Maybe I had a sip at your house once. I know it's pretty good.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah. I haven't bought a bottle. I have to get one. I went back to one of my standpoints. I like the Old Forester Rye is what I've got today.
Oh, okay. Yep.
A lot of spiced, cinnamony. Like we were talking on the last show, wintertime, still good for rye. How's that? What's the...
This has all kinds of beautiful smells coming out of it. On the nose, I mean, it kind of explodes out of the bottle. And I know from our last show, we got kind of spoiled from the upper echelon drinks we were having. I mean, this isn't too shabby also. This is not a cheap drink, but
right.
I mean, the smells coming off of this thing are beautiful. It's more floral and honey. Really nice.
Floral. That's different. Cheers. All righty. So we'll hop right in, and I guess we want to put a reminder out to our listeners and viewers to send us some comments on future topics. If you know anybody who would like to be a guest on the show, we're looking for guests to come on board. So thank you. Like and subscribe. So here we go. Gravel tips in no particular order. I'll start out with number one, riding position and handling, basically controlling your bike. I think one of the biggest things, I always am doing this, is I ride with tight shoulders. And I'm constantly having to release my shoulders when I'm riding to enjoy the ride. And it's usually in the beginning because I'm tense. But once I get going, trying to release the stress of whatever's been going on in life kind of thing. But I guess other things, ride position, depends on where you're riding, right? If you're riding on heavy gravel, uphill, downhill. I know downhill, I've learned over the years to always scoot your weight back and maybe a little bit lower center of gravity with your arms where you're on the bars at the most controlling part of your handlebars, and looking straight ahead to be aware of what's going on.
I also like to be on the back of the seat if I'm climbing.
Really?
So you're right. So, and you don't do as much mountain biking as I do. I've done a lot of mountain biking. And so you kind of get a really good feel from mountain biking as to how to balance and be on your bike and distribute the weight front and back and so forth. And so a lot of that for me carries over to the gravel riding, especially on hairy sections, because it all of a sudden becomes a little bit more like mountain biking than it does like road riding. And so, going downhill or over chunky sections, you really want to be back almost over the rear of the wheel going steep downhill. You want that weight kicking to the back. But also if you're climbing, depending on where your strengths are, whether your strengths are in your glutes or your hamstrings or your quads, will somewhat depend on where you're comfortable in your stance.
And the type of climber, too, has a lot to do with it, whether you're a spinner or a grinder. I'm more of a grinder. So, I'm usually stuck to the same spot of my seat and just focused on consistent grinding my way up.
The Monster Cross bike that I built comes from a mountain bike. It has mountain bike geometry because it's a mountain bike that I converted. And it is noticeably it puts me much more back on the bike than like a road bike would. And so I climb totally differently with that than I
Right.
do with my road bikes. It's really interesting.
And I rarely get up when I'm climbing. It has to be a really steep hill for me to get up, or a long
Yeah.
day in the saddle just to stretch different
Yeah,
muscles.
I try to get out and mix it up on my butt a little bit but yeah, I agree with you. The other thing too is, and we've talked about this before, how I like smaller bikes because I like to feel like I'm totally like on top of the bike, in control of the bike. I don't want to feel stretched out like I'm riding a chopper or anything like that. So
Right.
for me, I like smaller bikes that make me feel at least like I'm a little bit more in control and it's a little bit more nimble than a
Right.
big bike.
Another thing is to practice, especially if you're new to gravel, cornering on gravel or skidding. You really want to build your confidence up with gravel, and it's different than a turn on a road where your tires sticking to the road. With gravel, especially depending on the type of gravel, it's very easy to lose your rear end going around a turn. So I don't know. Do you see around a turn? Do you usually cut it short or go wide? Typically on a gravel turn.
Well, again, it depends on the terrain, how loose it is, but I think I approach it a little bit, again, more like mountain biking. In mountain biking, when you're taking a turn, you try to do any braking that you're going to do before you enter the turn.
I agree.
And so you're at an appropriate speed coming into the turn, and then you just let your speed kind of carry you through the turn. So that's
Power out of it, right?
Yeah, you want to you don't want to lock up the brakes certainly on loose gravel because you'll just go skidding out. So
Right.
well, you want to try to modulate the braking going into the steep bend before you're in it, and then
Right.
be in an appropriate speed and carry your speed out of it.
Yeah, I don't know if this is right, but I typically go wide before a turn and then come into the inner part of the turn. That's just me. I don't know.
It partially depends on terrain too, circumstances.
Yeah. What else? Like I said, I try to focus on relaxing my shoulders a lot. And the other thing is to use your arms as sort of shock absorbers, especially when you're on rough gravel. Be relaxed. Let your arms act like a shock absorber on a car. That helps a lot more than being stiff and rigid.
Yeah, especially if you don't have any kind of suspension on the bike, which a lot of most gravel bikes don't.
Right.
Yeah, keeping very loose up on the bars. Like I'm very light on the bars. I'm literally like all my weight's on my legs, and I'm almost just like resting on the bar.
Right. I
And
agree.
just letting my arms kind of flow and like you
Right.
say, be the suspension. So
Yeah. So here's a topic we probably differ on: wearing gloves or not. I wear gloves almost all the time. It's very rare I'll take a pair of gloves off. I like the cushioning. Maybe it's because of my back issues or numbness in my left arm all the time. But
I mean, I certainly wear gloves in the winter, so it's not that I'm opposed to wearing gloves on the bike. I prefer being able to feel the handlebar with my fingers, and it's good for touching the phone and stuff like that too. But I'm actually thinking for our long trip, I may at least get gloves with the fingers cut off, if not full gloves, because one, when you're on gnarly stuff, much. Do you see that?
yeah,
A thumbs up, pop up.
What's
That's
up with
kind
that?
of cool. When you're on gnarly stuff, much greater chance of falling, certainly, and you don't want to get your hands all messed up. The other thing, like you say, is shock absorption. So if you get a padded glove, that it can help with that. So I may, for a longer trip like that, I might actually end up using gloves. And I use gloves on the mountain bike.
right.
But for road, I think it's kind of unnecessary.
And then you got ride positioning on handlebars. A good pair of bars gives you a lot of options, which helps, I think, with gravel. I know when I got my salsa cut through, it seemed to have more. Maybe it's because of hydraulic shifters. So I can go in the middle. I can go on the top hoods. And last year, training for Unbound, this time of year, actually, March, April, with the winds here in the east, I spent a lot of time in the drops, knowing that when I went to Kansas, I could very well hit headwinds. And I think that was a huge reason why my speed was so high on that 50-mile at Unbound, because I learned to ride in the drops. And again, you have to have your bike, bike fit set up right to be comfortable in the drops. So I was out the other day and it was windy, and I went down the drops and I felt very confident. But in the past, I really hadn't ridden in the drops God bless you, a whole lot. So
Yeah, on the Monster Cost bike that I just built, I put those salsa cow chippers on there,
Yep.
and it's super comfortable just to like be in the drops. There's why? Because it kicks out.
Correct.
So it's all, like I was talking to you on our one ride. It's almost like driving a school bus. Like you're just real wide, just hanging out there like this, and
Yeah.
it gives you a lot of stability. And the other thing that you can do, a lot of people do on longer gravel rides, is you can put aero bars on the bars.
Right.
And just get in a tuck position.
Correct.
If it's not too gnarly, obviously you don't want to do that if it's a lot of uphill, downhill, gnarly turns.
Yeah, there's
But
some
if you're
good products out there for that.
yeah, and I've been in the tri world for a while. I may get a pair for our long ride, and I'll just go back to the super simple kind of shorty bars from the like early 2000s. That's all you need. You don't
I
need.
don't know if you'll be in those drops much climbing.
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna see.
The other thing is, I would say, is to tilt your handlebars slightly up for a more comfortable ride position. Again, you're disagreeing with me?
I don't like the aesthetics of it.
I don't care about the aesthetics. I have a bad back. I think it's a lot of riding is about comfort. So for me, it's getting in the right comfortable
Well,
position.
then just raise the stem.
Well, that's another thing you could do too, but slightly.
gotta have good
I'm not
aesthetics on
talking
a bike.
drastically, just slightly. You're too much.
You're going to
Anyway.
become that guy, aren't you? With the handlebars tipped all the way up and the big vertical stem.
Maybe another
and-
10 years, but not.
I won't let you do it. I won't.
All right, give me some input on riding in soft gravel or sand. I hate riding in sand. That's a nightmare.
Yeah. I think for that and any kind of loose gravel, it's about maintaining the proper weight on the rear wheel. If you're too far forward, and this is especially true when you're climbing a hill,
Right.
tendency when you're climbing a steep hill is to put your weight forward and drive. But if you're on loose gravel or soft sand, you're just going to spin out in the back. So you got to find that correct weight distribution where you're getting enough drive on the front to climb the hill, but you're also putting enough weight on the rear tire to really sink into the dirt and drive the wheel.
And if you're on a flat, I would think a lot of it has to do with maintaining a consistent speed, too. You don't want to go too slow or too fast. You just got to be consistent
Right.
and keep your eyes forward to where you're going to make sure you're heading the right direction. Another critical thing I think with gravel is tire pressure and tires. If we get on that topic, I mean, again, has a lot to do with where you're riding, conditions, weather. I think I've learned over the years, and as a rule of thumb, would you correct me if I'm wrong, the wider, bigger the tire, the less pressure you can get away with. Going
Well, the bigger the tire, the less pressure there's going to be anyway because there's
Right.
more volume.
right.
So it's kind of all relative. But yeah, I mean, tire pressure is everything in gravel and mountain biking because you want the right amount of traction, but you also don't want to be inefficient while you're cycling. And there are those studies about, well, if your tire is too rigid, you're losing a lot of speed, bouncing up and down, and it's not as efficient. So you got to lower the tire pressure. So
Right.
you really have to figure out what your train's going to be, how smooth
Right.
or unsmooth it's going to be, and how much you need to deflate your tire to get good grip, but not slow you down totally so you're just crawling. you
Yeah,
know?
I'm usually inflating a hair more if I know I'm going to have 50% road on a gravel ride and 50% gravel. If I'm going to be on gravel all day, then I'm going to drop it down. If I'm going to be in really gnarly gravel, I might drop it down a little farther. So that's
Yeah,
my
and-
general rule of thumb.
I would say typically in a mountain bike tire, I'm in the low 20s psi.
Really?
On a gravel tire, like a 650B 42-ish, I'm probably around 45, 50-ish. And in a road tubeless tire, I'm usually around 80.
Yeah, on mine, I'm running 700 by 42 gravel tire. And I think I've been running 38 pounds lately. So I used to run a lot more. Now, if I go on the road, I'll put it up to 42, 43. But 38 seems to be a sweet spot for at least like the C&O most days.
Yeah.
And
Well, you got some big tires in that salsa, too.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Those are Renee Hurst. So, yeah, on that, what else? So tire choice, I mean, that's all over the place. There's so many options these days with tires. I mean, I'm struggling whether to switch. I have a set of what I have, Pirelli Centero or something, gravel tires right now. And I'm debating to go back down to a 40 tire where I've had 50s, 42s. I have them online right now to sell them. I like this Rene Hurst 42. I think is a great overall. I ride
I
on the
feel
road.
like I feel like with a tire thing, it's a grass is always greener type of deal. Like no matter what tire you get, you're always looking for something to make you a little faster or give you a little more traction. And once you get that, you're like, no, it's got to be something else that can make me faster or give me more traction.
Right.
And you're never really settled. So my recommendation is try a bunch of different things as budget allows it and over time.
That's true. That's true.
I'm trying to think. I mean, where I've kind of settled in on the gravel front based on the stuff that I ride is I like a smooth center channel in case I ride road with some light knobbies on the side so that I have some grip when I turn if I turn on gnarly stuff. But that gives me kind of the balance of the most efficient because I'm flat in the middle,
Right.
and some grip if I have to take a gnarly turn.
Right.
Now, on this monster cross that I'm going to be taking on the trip, I have full-on mountain bike tires on that. I don't have huge knobbies. I kind of have more moderate knobbies on there.
I think that'll be good for that trip.
But yeah, it's a large volume tire, which means I can get good traction by reducing the PSI. And it gives me some knobbies too to give me some protection. So that's probably what I'm going to ride on that just because it's rougher terrain.
Yeah, the beauty of the Rene Hurst that I've been riding now for a year, I had the 50s and went down to the 42s for Unbound. I found, especially when I went to the 42, I mean, I saved the weight of one tire compared to having the 250s. But I was just so impressed on how they run. I mean, they're a knobby all the way around, but there's something with their design that I roll on the roads just fine with those. I just increased the pressure a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're great all around if it gets wet, even a little muddy. But for what I do on the CNO, I'm on gravel most of the time, so it's a good fit for me. So again, where do you ride most of the time is the key factor. But you're right. You got to try a couple things to figure out what's best for you.
Yeah. So on these tires on the Monster Cross too, like I bought them a couple months ago, and like I say, they're mountain bike tires with some knobbies. But my plan is to do almost all of my training on them. So by the time we ride, the knobbies are really kind of like whittled down,
softened down,
and it's almost a smooth tire with just a little bit of traction on it, but high volume. That's my
it doesn't
plan.
rain
It will have enough knobby
to grab
where it will help me, but not too much to slow me down. That's my plan.
My goal is to get a new pair of 42s like end of April to wear them down.
My plan is just buy new tires for the trip.
Yeah. Right. So saddle height. This is another one I didn't think about, but I saw some research recently. It said compared to a road bike, to lower your saddle a little more to have more control. I don't know how accurate, whether I agree with that. I mean, again, I think saddle height has a lot to do with your general bike fit. I mean, you got to be in a comfortable position. I think is more important than that.
So the general rule on bike fit, if you want to just try it on your own at home, is sit on the saddle and put your heel on your pedal. And when your leg, you don't want your leg to be straight. You want it to be just a very slight angle.
Right.
That's kind of the correct place to put it. I found with my body, if I put the bike next to me, it will hit my hip bone. And that gives me a very good starting point, and then I'll hop on the bike and I'll be very close to like almost final, and then I'll just tweak it from there. The other thing too is if you're worried about the stability, which I would say don't base your saddle height on the fact that you might come to a tricky portion here or there on your trip, because the rest of it you're not going to be as efficient as possible.
Right.
If you're really concerned about that, or you have a really tricky route coming up, you get a dropper post.
Yeah.
Put your saddle on a dropper post, and then you can adjust it as you go, kind of like a mountain bike.
Right.
I know a lot of people don't have dropper posts on their bike, but
got a good carbon seat post.
That's
and
what
that
I would
helps
do.
me
So you can adjust it on the fly.
with the give a little bit. So. What should we go to next here? Talked about handlebars. How about pedal choice and shoes when it comes to gravel? I've I there's different manufacturers out there. You got to find one that fits your foot, that's comfortable, it's the right soles in it. But I like the SPS Shimano cleats, and I like a rubber
SPD.
based Michelin sole for walking if I got to walk.
Right.
A lot of
Yeah,
people
that's the big
ride
thing
with
in
road
gravel.
shoes, but I did that years ago. It's not so comfortable.
No, big thing in gravel, one, because gravel is more experience oriented, so you may be walking into restaurants and off the bike a lot. And two, you're in rougher terrain, so you may have to hike a bike a little bit. So I think for shoes, it's really important not only to get something comfortable, but something that you can easily walk in and almost has a regular sole on the bottom.
Right.
I like the physiques. That's what I ride most. I don't have a terribly wide foot, but I don't have a narrow foot. It's kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And then the pedal thing I feel like is all about brand loyalty for people. People find what they like and they just ride it
I
and
have
ride it.
Lake.
So on
That's
all of
fine.
my everything but my road bikes, I use the egg beater pedals, which are awesome
Right.
because they're four-side entry. You never have to look down to enter it. You can get out of them extremely easy if you're falling or something like that. And I just have them on all my bikes. I have the titanium version on my lighter bikes, and I have the regular version on my heavier bikes because I don't care. And I just clip in and go.
All right. Another thing is hydration. Here again, we're a little bit different. I hydrate a lot. You hydrate very little, in my opinion. So water bottles, and this is going to be an issue for our trip, bike packing. I mean, when I bike pack, I'm usually carrying 4 water bottles. You'll probably carry one or two, and again, it depends on where
Four is a
you're
lot of
stopping
weight.
on a long trip. But I have 2 water bottles down the bottom in inner frame. I could put 2 bottles on my front forks that I don't usually do. But when I'm on a long trip, I learned the feeder bags on my handlebars. I want at least 1 bottle there. So it's like this. I don't have to go far while I'm riding, whether it's bumpy or road. And then I just bring the one from the bottom up to my feeder bag, and that's a great solution for
Yeah,
long rides.
I got those too. I got 2 feeder bags for my stem.
Yeah.
And I want to look a little bit more into the bladder that you can put in the middle of your
Yeah.
bike. I
Yeah,
don't know.
they
It sounds
say
like
that's good.
I'm still looking at the routes. I texted you some stuff the other day about our routes and the stops along the routes. I'm only through the first stage, the first day, but it seems like there'll be enough places to stop on the first day where we don't have to carry a ton of water.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through it day by day and see what we need, but I'll probably stick with just like the 2 stem. That will give me 2 bottles right at the stem. I'll keep them full. The other thing too is that I bought some carb mix so that my drink will have almost fuel to
Right.
it, carb fuel, rather than just being like a water or something like that and
I
being
always
extra
drink
calories.
electrolytes, so I'm always
Yeah, so it's full
science
of
and sport.
electrolytes.
Yeah.
Not only electrolytes, but also carbs and fuel. So it's a fuel source. So
Okay.
I'm gonna actually try that on our ride on Saturday.
Probably a
Part
good
of this ride
idea.
on Saturday is figuring out some of the nutrition. So
Now for Unbound, I bought a 1.5 liter ultra lightweight vest with a bladder, so I very well might take that. I know it's so light you don't even feel like you have it on, so that's good to be. The hydration's right there all day. You don't have to go anywhere. It's right on your
right.
shoulder with a magnet. So I think I will take that, especially if it's really hot. That's almost a given. So
Maybe you can send me a link to what you have. I might use
yeah,
some of
I
what you
love
have.
it. There's a couple out
use
there
some
that
of
are
your
really
stuff.
lightweight now.
Okay.
So, what else we got here? A couple more things. Tools. So, what do you carry for tools?
I carry a full bike bag. I have a full tool set with all this stuff. It even has the
Multi-tool
chain whatever
breaker.
breaker. Yeah. I make sure that I carry like a small set of pliers where sometimes I've had a problem with the tubeless tire where I can't get the valve nut off, and that's a particular problem if you have to replace the tube or something. So I have a small set of pliers. Wolf Tooth makes a nice like plier for that.
That's what I
I
have.
always carry a valve a deep valve thinger dinger to take the valve off. So if I need to put more tubeless sealant in, I can get that off easily. For me, it's more about the odd stuff that you can't find everywhere. Like you could find a flathead or Phillips head screwdriver somewhere, but or possibly even the hex wrenches. But it's that small, very specialty kind of stuff that I'm most concerned with. And then the CO2 and the CO2, whatever you call it.
That screws on to the top of the CO2.
Yeah, right. The pump.
Yeah, I had CO2 tubes, an extra tube, tire lever, pump or the CO2 or both, multi-tube. Here's something that I picked up a tip is zip ties because they come in handy for a lot of things.
Zip ties and electrical tape. Like a lot of times I'll wrap electrical tape around my seat post and I'll just have it there if I need it.
Especially good on a long bike packing trip when you're out in no man's land.
A couple extra chain links, very helpful.
That too. Yep, I've got that. So that's
if you use electronic, a couple batteries. If you're going on a long trip, or at least one battery.
Yep.
I always have a spare battery on me just in case.
Well, I'll be taking a charger with me on the bike packing trip too. I have an extra, so you don't need to buy one if you want one.
I don't have electric for that bike.
No, I'm talking about charge your phone, your Garmin, things like that.
Sure.
Yeah, and when you get to camp, so that's good, especially if you don't get somewhere with electric to charge it. And then, a saddle bag, top tube bag, or frame bag. I ride with a top tube bag and a saddle bag all the time. So I put my tools in the saddle bag, usually food and maybe a charger in my top tube bag. Now, on the bike packing trip, I'll drop the saddle bag because I have my big clothing. I think it's a Terrapin Revelate design for clothes and stuff, and I'll put the tools. I'm not sure where I'll put them, but I put the tools somewhere else. Usually in the center of the bike is the best place where you're heaviest on a long trip to put things in the middle of the bike if you can.
And you and I may want to talk about that and make sure we only have one set of everything so we don't have to carry duplicative.
Right.
Just thinking.
And a couple more tips here, almost done, is, gravel is different than road. Your bike is shaking a lot. And you have a tendency to forget to check all the bolts on your bike occasionally. I'm guilty of this myself. But, everything from your saddle, seat post, handlebars, if you got screws around the frame, you really should check those things to make sure at least quarterly, minimally, depending on how much you ride.
Yeah, I check every few rides, especially after a big bumpy ride. I will check my brakes. I will check the headset screws. That's a big one because your handlebars get loose and you're toast. I check the rear derailleur, front derailleur if I have it.
Right.
Usually if like your seat post is getting loose because you'll start dropping.
Right.
You'll start hearing the creaking and cracking too.
Yeah.
But the headset and the stem screws are a huge one for me because I don't want to, get a new set of teeth.
That's not fun.
No.
And just a couple things to finish here. Really, I think the key is to embrace the gravel culture, which is very different than the road culture I have in recent years. Find a local group ride of gravel riders. You can Google your local bike shop. Sign up for an event somewhere nearby in your state. And most of these events nowadays have a 30, a 50, 100 or more. But start small. If you've never done an event, it's really fun to get out and meet other people. You learn, where to ride, meet a new friend to ride with. And I think gravel culture is just a lot of fun. I experienced it Unbound last year. If you talk about gravel culture, that was just nuts. Seeing so many people, it's just fun. And gravel is, they say you can ride any bike pretty much. Just get out and try it. You can ride with anything. Gravel, I know people that ride with hybrids, road bikes. Obviously, after you're riding a while, you want a gravel bike or a hybrid, of some kind.
I would say a road bike probably wouldn't be much fun. I think you're going to end up with a lot of flats.
Yeah, that's true too.
Make sure you have a chunky tire that's at least 30 centimeters wide. Anything over 30 you could get away with. I did Michaud. Remember that one time? I did Michaud in a 30 millimeter tire. And I
Did you get a
survived.
flat that trip?
No,
That's amazing.
no, that's fine. No, that's fine.
And finishing off, pace yourself, enjoy the ride and the adventure. I say it's always about the adventure, not the destination.
Oh, we're gonna have one, buddy. We're gonna have one here coming up.
Yeah, right.
I can't wait.
Me too. I just got to get training more. But Hank had me out on his local training route last week and tried to kill me going up this, 19, 18%.
It was like 14 miles.
Yeah, but it was the grade at the end. It was like, jeez, crazy.
Well, we're going to do about a 40-miler Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
That would be good. And I actually made my training plan. So there's my training plan. And I got a day, pretty much every Monday, I'm going to be doing 25 miles, whether that's on the trainer or down on the trail. Every Wednesday, I'm going to be doing hill climbing. So basically repeats of that hill that we did with 15% grade, like 4 or 5
Sisters,
repeats.
yep.
And then on the weekends, I'm going to be doing between 30, 50, 60-mile rides. So I have 2 60-plus mile rides, a 50, a couple 40s, and a couple 30s. And, and 3 rides in between, and then a couple runs each week. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't get me there, then that's it. That's all I'm doing.
I'm waiting for it to warm up so I can get out and do more of the hill climbing. I like to do the hills twice a week if I could. And once usually gets warm in April, I'll get out 4 days a week.
Well,
right now I'm 1 or 2.
My philosophy is embrace the suck.
Yeah, right.
So I kind of like going out when it's really crappy weather because then I know when it's nice weather, like that's easy. If I can ride when it's like 35 and misting and breezy, then the rest of this stuff is easy.
It was 32 when we went out the other day. I mean, I really wasn't that
but it was
cold.
sunny.
Yeah, that helps.
Like the really miserable days when it's like that
today.
38 and just
rainy.
like drizzling.
Yeah.
The raw days.
Right. So next week, what do we got for a potential topic coming down the pike here next week? Show.
That's a good question.
You were talking about something. What did you talk about earlier?
I totally forget. You know what we should do?
What?
We should talk about. Did we talk about what we're going to take on this trip yet?
No.
Let's talk about the equipment we're going to take on the trip, and let's break down by day where our stops could be and what we see coming up for ourselves.
We'll have to have a meeting before we do that.
With Bourbon.
Yeah. Let me know what night I'll be over. All right?
All right.
Well, that wraps it up for this week. Thanks again for our listeners and subscribers. Check us out on the YouTube channel as well as all the local podcasts.
And make sure you tune in to last week's show is posting just about now. Make sure you tune into that one to the blind taste test. It's pretty fun. I watched it the other night when I was putting it together. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's pretty good.
All right, Hank. All right. Have a great week.
Good seeing you.
We'll see you later next time.
Everyone, peace out.
Cheers.